It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, talking property news as we do 7 days a week, and as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as Amazon. It is a Tuesday today, the 2nd of July, and despite the surge in property listings, buyer demand remains constant, creating this two-speed market across the country. This is according to PropTrack, who say that vendors can feel confident about listing now as strong buyer demand is persisting. However, they do say that high interest rates and the cost of living crisis are leading to more distressed sales around the country. Melbourne's property market is lagging compared to other capital cities, with national property prices rising, particularly in urban areas. In fact, if you look at May, the capital city prices rose by 0.4%, with year-on-year increases of 7.2% in cities and 5.3% in regional areas. And one of those areas that stands out is Perth, with homes selling 25% faster and prices up 21% year on year, of a median price now of just a tick under 700 grand. So let's catch up with Travis Coleman, who is the head of Belle Property in WA. And a very good morning to you, Travis. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast. You were telling me off air that you're responsible for 23 offices and about 500 people. So that'd keep you pretty busy, eh?
It sure does, actually. I love my job, and I love the people that we work with. But very busy times, that's for sure.
Now, what about retention and recruitment as far as real estate agents are concerned? I mean, it's a reasonable number, 500 people. Recruitment, how is that going for you at the moment?
We're very fortunate here at Belle Property. We've got some great career pathways for individuals wanting to come into the industry, and also agents who perhaps have lost their way and seeking direction and assistance. So we're very much a team-based company, and we focus a lot of our training and efforts and infrastructure about developing people and helping them grow and achieve their best possible outcome. So we find by approaching people in recruitment with having a good strategy, a good, clear career path in place, and putting them on the pathway to success, that we're able to find and secure good talent, not only for the short term, but that retention model is really important as well.
Well, yeah, because we've sort of talked about the numbers in that 80% after 12 months leaving the industry, which is an astronomical number. And yeah, you sort of got to look at new creative ways of retaining people, I guess.
You do, and it's really about making sure we're talking to the people, finding out what they want to do, and also having a look at their strengths and weaknesses and putting them in a position that they can actually succeed. The stat of 80% of the people falling out of the industry is staggering. It's quite disappointing, really, because I feel as though as an industry we lose a lot of good people because we don't have good career pathways and training infrastructure to help them grow and develop.
Yeah, I've talked about this in the past in terms of principals and sales managers, whereby it's just a bit of a numbers game for a lot of these people, and they bring the people in, they just completely work on the numbers, and then the churn is there without the realisation of, hey, you've got to hold their hand. You've got to really get in the trenches with them to help them sort of navigate through the first 12 months. And if you can do that, the really successful principals around Australia are the ones that don't have the churn, that, have people that are absolutely committed to working alongside these principals.
100%. Look, real estate is a lot about resilience and repetition. We understand that. That's the foundations of the business. But really getting to know the person identifying their strengths and weaknesses and putting a team around them to help in some areas that they're perhaps not efficient at will ultimately help them grow. We certainly don't like the idea of the old days where you put an agent into an office, give them the old digital phone book and say, off you go. We really do put in a traineeship here at Belle Property and make sure that the person gets exposure to all facets of the job and the industry. And really, by the end of that almost traineeship of a year to 24 months, they're ready to be an agent in their own right and build a team underneath them. We find that gives purpose, and obviously the results then speak for themselves.
All right, so there you go. You might want to get in touch with Travis there in WA. He might be able to set you on your career path in real estate if that is something you have been looking to do. Now, Travis, it's no secret, and we've mentioned this about the property Perth market bucking this slow winter market. You've kind of had a bit of a flurry of buyer activity. What have you been seeing regarding the winter in the last few weeks on the ground there?
Well, we've seen some amazing stories coming out from weekend home opens where just last weekend we had a property launch on Friday morning, the agent's phone going off, and we're talking about, a $750,000 property, which is now hitting to the first home buyers market and investors alike. By the time we opened the property on Saturday morning at 11 a.m, for example, prior to that we had 27 groups through from 10:30. Over the course of that weekend, we had 126 groups through the property and received 12 written offers, and were able to sell the property on Tuesday for well above what the vendor expected to get.
Wow. So that is a lot of numbers. We are talking with Travis there in Perth. We'll come back after the break. Few more questions to ask around buyer activity and just how hard it is getting a listing. We'll talk about that next.
As we approach 1,000 episodes, a big thanks to all of our guests for their insightful knowledge, trends and forecasts. We look forward to another 1,000 episodes together.
Well, as we talk about the market still being pretty much positive, over the weekend on Saturday, I see that a 5-bedroom home in Brunswick in Melbourne, that passed in at 1.62 million after 2 vendor bids. He's not a fan of the vendor bids. The property had a price guide of 1.6 million to 1.7 million. Only one of the 3 expected bidders attended, but even that particular person didn't put an offer on the property, and it was among 793 homes scheduled for auction in Melbourne this last weekend on Saturday, with the Domain Group recording a 61.8% preliminary auction clearance rate from 553 reported results, with 79 auctions withdrawn. So there's some of the numbers from last weekend.
Gain insights with exclusive conversations from real estate professionals about buying, selling and investing across Australia.
And it is a Real Estate Tuesday today. We are in WA. Travis is with us. And Travis, there was a time when agents potentially could hold back listings for the spring rush. But I think agents these days, they are in more of a rush to bring properties to the market and to get quicker results faster for vendors rather than lose time to any perceived spring premium, which probably talks volumes just in terms of where we are right now, particularly in Perth, regarding property prices.
That's correct. And look, historically, everyone used to hold off the property, get them ready over the winter periods, do the little bits of maintenance, getting ready to launch it all in spring, and you'd have a flood of properties coming to market. In Western Australia at the moment, we're seeing record low levels of volume of stock on the market with, I think last week we were sitting around 3,200 properties in total. Now, if we go back to the heady days of what a healthy market should be, it's about 13 to 14,000 properties. So it's a drastically reduced number. So therefore, a lot of our agents and a lot of competing agents are bringing properties to market as quickly as they can in order to capitalise on the low stock that's available on the market, given there's so many people looking to buy properties. So it's not uncommon to see less than half a dozen properties available for sale in any particular suburb at the moment.
And what about buyer activity? Because we talked at the top, this seems to be very, very healthy. The buyers are there. The stock isn't, though, and we'll talk about getting listings in just a moment. But let's just sort of hone in on the buyer activity.
Look, the buyer activity is huge. The demand is amazing, and it's something that I haven't seen before in the marketplace. And look, I really do feel for buyers at the moment, because if you think about it, the basics of it are that you can only sell the property to one person. So, you feel for these first-home buyers in particular, telling us that they've finished second 6 times in a row when trying to buy a property. That can be really frustrating for them. And obviously, how an agent deals with those buyers with transparency and respect is really important at this point, because they can often miss out on a property for very small amounts.
Yeah, and it's all about saving. In fact, on Saturday, we were just talking about Nellie and Kane in Sydney. Spent 5 years, as we mentioned, to buy a 1-bedroom apartment in Parramatta. They both gave up drinking coffee. As I mentioned on Saturday, that's a really difficult thing to do, and they gave up cafe lunches. It saved them $13,000 a year, and across 5 years, $65,000. So, boy, it's a lot of money. That's
a fantastic story. I love the resilience of that young couple. I'm not sure I could give up coffee, that's for sure.
Exactly right. Now, talking of getting these listings, it's proving to be quite challenging.
That is probably the biggest challenge in the real estate industry in Perth at the moment, given that people wanting to sell their property have an enormous amount of agents to choose from. So really focusing on the relationships that you build with clients over the long term instead of just looking for a quick sale is really key. And really focusing on their needs and wants and why they want to sell a property and what their next move looks like. And if we can accommodate them in that process, we're a far better chance to win the business and help them sell the property. And also, we're seeing market conditions the same as in Perth metro area versus regional areas as well. Our company is fortunate enough to have offices in Broome and in the southwest, Busselton, Bunbury, Dunsborough and Margaret River. We're seeing very strong market conditions throughout. So there's no disparity between Perth metro areas versus those regional areas. Interestingly, what we have seen is a dramatic increase in interstate investors looking into Western Australia. I think they're mainly attracted to the high rental yields that we're getting at the moment, which we're seeing circa 5%, which is far better than what they'd probably achieve over east. So that competition coming into the marketplace has certainly added pressure to the buyer pool and obviously the prices that we're achieving for sale properties.
Yeah, those investors from Sydney, they have certainly got an appetite for WA. All right then, well, great to catch up with you, Travis, find out a little bit about what's happening in your pocket of Australia. Enjoy your Tuesday, and thank you so much for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning.
Thank you so much.
Don't navigate the real estate market alone. Let us help guide you in the world of real estate every day. Make better informed decisions with the latest news and insights.
The Insurance Council of Australia says that 83% of all people in Australia are underinsured. Australia is one of the most underinsured countries in the world. The average that a person is underinsured is 24%.
You know, most people would just sort of shake their head and say, gee, that is such a big number. 83% of Australians are underinsured. Is that the highest it's ever been?
Yes, by about 1.5%. So if we go back about 20 years, at that time, the number of underinsurance in Australia was at 81%. If anything, we've got worse by a couple of percent.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.